we're going to talk about everything that I read in quarter one of 2026. I was MIA for a little while, but I'm back to talk about my books. We're going to get into everything I read in January, February, and March. I think it's 12 books in total. So let's get to it. Okay. The first book I finished this year was Castle of Water by Dane Huckelbridge. I found it on Audible and just decided to give it a download, but I didn't actually listen to it for years. It had been on there for quite a while, and I don't know what made me pick it up, but something said, you know what, now's the time for this story. And it's literary fiction. It is a survival story. There is a French couple, Sophie and her young husband, are going on their honeymoon to a little island, and Barry has decided to sort of walk away from what he was doing previously. He's a little bit jaded, and he wants to start anew, and he wants to go to the final resting place of Paul Gauguin, I think. He's going to see somebody's grave. I think it's Gauguin. Might be someone else. Don't quote me on that. And the plane crashes, and Barry and Sophie are stranded on this island, and it's just a really sweet story about people, you know, trying their best in really, really terrible circumstances. And it had a lot of really sweet moments, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.25. Yeah, so I really fell in love with the characters. It was really hard not to like really root for them, to both survive and, you know, maybe find a little bit of comfort within each other. I was really invested in that story. I definitely cried at times. I laughed out loud. It was quite funny. I was actually shocked by how funny some of the moments were. Sophie specifically got so much like spunk, and it was really poignant, and I really, really enjoyed it. It started off really, really strong, and the middle, like the climax, it's not really a climax, but like the middle of the book, like I was so invested. Like I said, it made me cry. It made me so mad at times. It made me audibly laugh out loud. Like I was having a great time at some parts. I was devastated at other parts, but overall the ending wasn't my favorite, so that's why I didn't give it a 5. But it really is like 4.25, 4.5 range, somewhere in there. It was great. I really liked it. And the second book that I read in January was The Merge by Grace Walker. The Merge is a sci-fi dystopian story about a future where the world is overpopulated, and a solution that has come about to help with the overpopulation is for people to merge. Basically, there are two people, and one person becomes the host, and someone else's consciousness gets put inside them, and then they both live within one body. So, you know, to become one, if you will. Spice Girls reference. Hey, I am an elder millennial. So this one was very well written. It was quite devastating. We follow the main character as she decides whether or not she wants to go through with this merge, which is going to put her mother, who has Alzheimer's. Basically, the organization that is promoting these merges pick the main character and her mother as two candidates to basically be like a trial run for if we can eradicate Alzheimer's by merging two people, and then the mother who would live inside the host body, the daughter, now the mother would not have any symptoms of Alzheimer's. She would become completely lucid again and revert back to how she was before she got sick, by now living in her daughter's body alongside her, two consciousness, one body. there's a lot of questions, like, between ethical things and, you know, like, how does this work? And, like, you know, it's a very strange book. I was definitely invested in it. It was really well paced. There was like a lot of twists and turns along the way. You got to meet a lot of really good characters. There were some really devastating storylines within it. I gave it a 4, and that was mostly because of the ending. While there was some stuff like right before the end that was really shocking and I really enjoyed it. Just the way that it actually ended, the last page of the story, left me wanting a little bit. So, gave it a 4. But yeah, a solid sci-fi. If you like futuristic dystopian novels, if you liked something like The Compound, a similar pacing and structure, I think, to this one, you would probably like this one as well. The next book that I finished was The Last House on Needless Street. I don't know how to pronounce the author's first name. Katrina Ward. It's Catroina. Yeah. And I'm not 100% sure. She's a pretty well-known horror author. This is a horror book. It is about, as the title suggests, the last house on Needless Street. A weird guy resides there, and there's some weird things happening in the walls of that house. You know, he lives not quite alone with his cat and with a young girl who is his daughter, maybe. And we don't really know the circumstances of how she got to be there. There's a lot of, you know, unclear stuff. We get points of view from Ted, the main character in the house. And everything is kind of, we don't really know if anybody's reliable, and the narrations, like, there's perspectives from all kinds of different, I think there's even a perspective from the cat in this story. And then cut to a woman whose little sister went missing years ago when they were on a beach, and she is on a journey to find out what happened to her little sister, and she crossed paths with Ted from the house on Needless Street. It was very weird. I would say it wasn't scary. For a horror book, there was like a couple of moments that were a little bit like gross and a little bit like, ooh, I hate reading about this kind of stuff. But no actual like horror or scares. Not very scary. Just kind of odd. And like I said, there was some like gruesome stuff in it in terms of like trigger warning things, like child abuse and stuff. You know, like people getting burned with hot oil and stuff like that. And you know, it was okay. I gave it a 3.5. I kind of guessed what was happening maybe halfway through, maybe a little before halfway through. There were still a lot of things that happened that I was not expecting, but like the main plot twist was something that I kind of assumed based on the way things were written. Yeah. So the twists, you know, although well done, they were all quite predictable, especially if you read a lot of thriller and horror books. You know, it was pretty easy to guess what was going on. It was a really good like dive into childhood trauma and how that affects someone as they grow, once they are an adult. You know, just what childhood trauma does to a person. That was really the crux of what the story was. And 3.5 wasn't great, but I definitely didn't hate it. It was definitely a good, solid read. It was just a little bit predictable and not very horror as I was expecting. Next, we have The Night and the Moth, and God, did this piss me off. All right, so I'm not really like a No, I'm a fantasy girl. I'm not a romantasy person. I do not read romantasy books. I don't really read any romance, especially contemporary romance. I really dislike the writing style for the most part. That's really not a genre that I vibe with. So I don't read a lot of romantasy or contemporary romance. They're both kind of no-nos for me, but I heard a lot of good things about The Night and the Moth, and I decided, hey, let me just like give it a shot and see what's going on. Unfortunately, my favorite part of this book was the really tropey, derpy sidekick animal character, which in this instance isn't really an animal, it's a gargoyle. I loved the fucking gargoyle. I fucking loved this stupid ass gargoyle so much. Thank God for that little fucker making me laugh all the time. Because I don't know if I would have been able to fully get through it without him. Like halfway through, I was so bored and I was like, ugh. But then he kept making me laugh and I was like, okay, we'll keep going. And it ended up getting pretty good. And then the ending. I don't even think I really told you what it's about. So we follow a diviner, Six. She's the sixth diviner, also known as Bartholomew and Sybil. So basically when they become diviners, they're like not allowed to have their name anymore. The gargoyle calls her Bart or Bartholomew, and she knows that her real name is Sybil. But everyone else just calls her Six because when she's with the diviners, they all just call each other by their name, by what diviner number they are. So basically, one day she wakes up and one of the diviners is gone. And slowly they all start going missing. And she's like, okay, I need to find my fellow diviners. And she kind of like sneaks out of her castle town thing that she's in. They kind of like keep them trapped at night or something. I don't know. I think they were locked in at night. They would like escape into the town. Well, they did their like first escape right before the girls start going missing. Because they're kind of living a really sheltered life where their sole purpose is to basically be tortured to divine for the king. And the process by which they do this is they hold them underwater until they basically are losing consciousness, and that gives them dreams, and then those dreams, you know, are the prophecies that they are seeing. And so she leaves, and she, you know, basically meets up with some other people, a trio, who are like, yeah, come join our thing. We'll help you find your diviners. But also we're going to like take over pretty much the kingdom. Like they're on a quest to take down these like ancient ruler figures. And they just go on this quest. So my two biggest issues with the story, A, the love story, insta love, you know, not really a fan of it. And while it isn't insta-love, they don't really love each other right away. It just goes from, like, they don't really get along to, like, they're definitely in love with each other. Although they don't really ever act in a way that is like, we are in love with each other. Just by the end, it is like, I would die for you kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, that was really quick. Like, when did these feelings develop? Why? What? So that part I didn't love. It was just very unbelievable. Their love story, there was really nothing about them as characters that made it seem like, oh yeah, this is why these two people love each other. We didn't really get enough time alone with them to develop that part of the story. And then the ending, are you freaking kidding me? The ending is just a cliffhanger. Like, no resolution at all. Like, in the middle of a build-up. It's just like, the end. You have to read the next book if you want to know anything. That shit made me angry. This is why I don't read, like, these big, epic fantasy books. Because, no. I want this story to be satisfying. I don't want to have to read the next book because you left me unanswered. That's bullshit. I want to read the next story because I loved this story and I'm interested to continue following these characters, not because you're forcing me to. It was a big shock what happened at the end, and then it just ends. That really pissed me off. So, for that reason, I gave this a 3. It could have been like a 4 if it had had a really great ending that really like showed some character development within this couple and why they really felt so hard for each other and whatever. But instead, just an abrupt pissed me off. Pissed me off. I'm still going to try maybe another romantasy in the future. I don't want to like cut off the whole entire genre, but like, damn it, that annoyed me. Okay, next up is When These Mountains Burn by David Joy. This was so good. This just hit me like out of nowhere. I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. It is a story about addiction and grief and, you know, just the cycles of drug use and criminal activity and what it does to a community. And, yeah, this one had me quite devastated multiple times. This book broke me. Like, I did not know what I was getting myself into when I started reading this book. So the story follows Ray. He has recently lost his wife. Is it recently? Maybe. Yeah, I think so. And he's dealing with his son, who is an adult, but who is a drug addict. He calls him, you know, basically he's like, I need some money to pay off these people. And the dad is like, fuck off, basically. And then the drug dealer is like, no, you need to pay off your son's debt. Otherwise, really bad things are going to happen to the other people in your life and him. And so he decides, you know, he doesn't want to pay these drug dealers who are ruining the whole freaking town. Instead, he's going to get revenge on them. That is kind of how this story plays out. And the book really shines when it's in its like realism place, where it's just talking about really devastating slice of life things that happen every day across this freaking globe to lots of people who are addicted to lots of substances. There's a lot of like action-y sequences as well. Those were, you know, they're fun, I guess, but that wasn't the part that made this book great. The human relationships, the drama, all of that was like 5-star because of the like silly action stuff that was a little bit over the top. And it's like, okay, the way that they defeated, you know, the town drug dealers and things like that was a little ridiculous. So like for that, I gave it a 4.5. But overall, the humanness, the characterization, the realistic portrayal of drug addiction really was great. And if you can handle that kind of stuff, I recommend this book. It was really good. Okay, now on a lighter note, we're going to talk about the most ridiculous thing I read this quarter, and that is a book called Bear. I saw this at the library. I was like, oh, look, a lady touching a bear. What is this? Little tiny short book. Okay, took it out, did a little lookups about what it was. It was about a lady fucking a bear. Yeah. I was like, what? No way. And it's like considered, you know, like classic Canadian literature. I was like, what? I need to know. Boy, oh boy, was it about a lady and a bear. Woo! It's really slow to start. It's just really mundane. And you're like, when the hell is this lady gonna fuck the bear? You know? And then it comes and you're, no pun intended, because it does not actually. That is one thing that does not ever happen. The bear does not, and she's very upset about that. She can't relieve the bear. She's like, ugh, we can never come to completion together. Like, really, that's like thoughts that go in through this lady's head. She wants the bear to like get it up and get it inside her. And she's upset that can't happen. He's only like licking and stuff, you know? What the fuck? The rest of the book was really good. I really liked the whole thing. I read it in literally one sitting. It's like, I don't know, maybe like 120 pages or something. And I just sat down and said, okay, and read it from front cover to back cover in an hour. It was really good. But the bear stuff was kooky. And, you know, it was really sad and depressing how she was so like devoid and starved of love in her life for so long that she became obsessed with a freaking bear. Also, like, poor bear. Like, what did he have to deal with before she got there? Who knows what kind of weird things were happening between the people and the bear, because the bear knew what to do right away. And it's like, oh, this bear was taught this, you know? At least that's the feeling I got. Marian Engel is the author of this book. And yeah, like I said, I looked it up, so I went into it knowing exactly what to expect. Like the first review was literally like, hello, when is she gonna F the bear? And I was like, what? But yeah, it was still shocking. The actual way that it's written is shocking, but the rest of the book is written so beautifully. I mean, that part is written beautifully too, but you know, the subject matter is crazy. But the book is written beautifully. And I guess I'm giving it 3 stars, which feels both too high and too low because what? Okay, on to the next book. Okay, going from the book Bear to a book about a boy named Bear. We're talking about The Names. This was one of the most popular books last year. That is by Florence Knapp. And this is basically a book about how our names dictate the way things happen in our lives. So the story starts out with a woman who is walking with her daughter on the way to the registrar to solidify what I don't know the word when you declare your child's name. Declare? I don't know. You know, she's going to register her son under his name. And her husband's name is Gordon, and he says, you know, of course, just like everybody else in our family, we're naming our son Gordon because that's tradition. The boys get named after their fathers. Gordon, however, number, he has at least a third because we know that her husband is Gordon and his father is Gordon. So at least Gordon the third. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And she just happens to kind of like mention it to her daughter. Well, no, she doesn't mention that. She asks, you know, like, if you could name your brother anything, what would it be? And she's like, well, I thought his name was going to be Gordon, you know. The daughter's older. She's, I think, like 10 at the time. And so they have a little discussion. And the daughter says if it was her choice, she would name him Bear. Because that's strong, but also like her little teddy bear who's fluffy and cuddly. And and then the mother is like, oh, and the mother was like, I was thinking Julian, which one of the meanings of Julian is Sky Father. And she thinks, you know, well, maybe I can convince Gordon that that's a good idea because I'm still honoring you by naming him something that's father related and you are his father. And then we switch timelines. Well, we split timelines and we follow this child growing up as Bear, this child growing up as Julian, and this child growing up as Gordon. And we have, you know, it's not just his point of view. You know, you have the mom, you have the sister, you have external people all in the story of all 3 of these timelines. Wow. This was another one that, Jesus Christ, I wasn't prepared. And I literally was reading it directly after When These Mountains Burn. So it's like I was fully fucking broken from that book. And then I start this one, which I couldn't survive from at the first fucking... Yeah, it just opens with fucking gruesome shit. And you're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah. So it was like 2 devastating books in a row. I was just like, ugh. Hence Bear, you know. Like I said, Bear just sat down in one day. I needed the levity of something to take me out of these 2 worlds. I was like, I cannot keep being so sad. And I really thought that I had found a 5-star with the names. I was like, this is a 5-star, 100%. Like, this is awesome. In the first 40 or so pages, I was enthralled. Like I said, it opens with a bang. By the middle, it was like pulling teeth to get myself to pick it back up. Like, it dragged on for so long in the middle bits, because there is 3 narratives. You know, there's a lot of just like mundane stuff happening to some of the characters for, you know, long bouts of time, because it's like every 7 years is each section. But yeah, it had so many like extremely tender and beautiful moments. It was really well written. And I ended up giving it a 4-star. If you like character-driven novels about the way that our choices impact our lives, butterfly effect, if you will, this will be right up your alley. The writing was stunning, but trigger warning, there is a lot of like domestic violence and stuff in this story. It is heartbreaking, especially at the beginning. Okay, next book. And here we go. Another book that was not fun, but was so good. This is Before We Were Yours. Okay, this one is by Lisa Wingate. It is a historical fiction story, and it follows children who are put into very troubling circumstances based on some true events. Yeah, they're essentially kidnapped by this home for children and, you know, are sold off to rich people who are having trouble conceiving or want children for whatever reason. That is what this story focuses on. We have present day, we have the past, dual timelines, and this book was beautiful. It was very sad, but another one that I just like flew through. I was enthralled from start to finish. This is the kind of stuff that I read all the time when I was younger. This is exactly my like genre of book. I love stuff that deals with, I love historical fiction. I love coming of age. I love like finding out, you know, like uncovering really sad things that happened in the past and how that shapes your family. And it was just really well written. And I really like stories that shine light onto like historical events that are not super well known, that, you know, maybe people should know about. Like the lady who actually ran this like Tennessee home for children was apparently like a monster. And there's some documented stuff from the 50s when she was caught. And there's a really long author's note that talks all about this and really gives a lot of historical detail about like the true events. I really, really appreciated that. It was fascinating. Blurred the line between fiction and nonfiction, because I really do love nonfiction and ones that are written well, especially when they have like a narrative. I love, and I have not been reading them a lot lately, and so, you know, I have one right now that I'm thinking about picking up next because I really want to get back into it. And this one really like towed that line of being a little bit of both. And so I really appreciated that. This one is a very high 4.5. There was like a little bit of a love story between some characters in the modern time that I was just like, meh, I don't really need this part of the story. So that part I didn't really care about, which is why it wasn't a 5-star, but fantastic. Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. Phenomenal book. Highly recommend to anyone who likes historical fiction, family dramas, etc. All right, and now we have What Kind of Paradise, Janelle Brown. Very sad that this one isn't a 5-star. I keep getting 4.5s and no 5s. I had 3 on this list that were above a 4. We had a 4.25, we have a 4.5, now we have another 4.5. Why can't I get a 5-star this year? I don't know. Meet me behind the mall. Okay, I'm back. It's much later on in the night. I believe I was just about to get into What Kind of Paradise. We're on a roll with books that I'm really, really liking, but nothing that's like perfect yet. Not yet this year. Anyways, but this is a story about a girl who lives remotely with her father in Wyoming, and he starts to go a little bit more like off the rails. She's like completely isolated from society for the most part. He's very, you know, he has conspiracies about like the government is out to get them and silly things. And as things go more and more off the rails, she eventually gets out of there. And she travels to San Francisco to find her mother and the only other person that she kind of like knows in the world, which is someone that she met on a chat room, because right before she gets out of there, her dad buys a computer and she ends up like having contact with someone on the outside of her little bubble. And it takes place in the 90s. There's so much great 90s nostalgia, you know, the beginning of like the tech boom. There's all kinds of stuff about internet startups and everything that was going on back then, the music scene. It's really, really fun. I loved all of that. The story was really well paced. It is a lot of fun. And also, you know, devastating at times. One of the things that I really liked about this story is that the main character, Jane, she just felt so real to me. Like, the decisions that she made actually tracked with her circumstances. Like, she wasn't doing things that seemed out of character to me at all. Like, one of the only books, especially that is in like, especially that's in a sort of like thriller category, where the protagonist wasn't just making dumb mistakes or doing things that no one would do in real life. She felt like a very real character whose decisions, you know, made sense for her circumstances. You know, like when someone gets one over on her, it's like, well, yeah, she's been living in the woods without any contact from anyone for years. Unlike this other person that I'm supposed to believe is like a scientist that, you know, forgets their cell phone. You know, it's just like, there was none of that. So I really, really liked it. Very thought-provoking, really fun, fast-paced. I really liked it. And then the last book for this quarter is Junie. And Junie is not what I was expecting at all. I did not know what it was about going into it. I think the premise that I had heard was that it was a magical realism story, that it was historical fiction, and that it was like about a girl who, I thought she did some kind of like spell to bring her sister back, and then it was kind of like about ghosts. And while there is a ghost plot line, she is not involved with bringing the sister back. It's not like a spell that she cast or anything, which is what I thought. And it's actually very much a story about racism and slavery. And it was so good. I really, really like Junie as well. This one I gave 4 stars. Let me see who Junie's by. Junie is by Aaron Crosby Eckstein and Eckstein. And yes, so I wasn't expecting the setting of the book, and I really enjoyed it. I really love magical realism, and I really love historical fiction. So on that front, totally right up my alley. The only thing that kept it from being a 5-star was a little more romance than I was expecting, and a lot less ghosts than I was expecting. I thought the ghost story plotline was the main plotline of the story, and it is not. Not even by a mile. And yeah, I'm pretty sure like almost every book besides Bear, and maybe, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Almost every book that I read this quarter has like made me cry. Like, I think I definitely cried at Junie. Maybe not What Kind of Paradise. I don't know if that ever made me cry. Definitely Before We Were Yours. Definitely The Names. Definitely Watch These Mountains Burn. When These Mountains Burn. Definitely The Merge. Castle of Water. As you can tell, it's like fucking midnight now. I'm just like so out of it. I got interrupted. And yeah. But yeah, I think that that's everything that I read in the first quarter. And I will do a little infographic with like some stats right now that I will pop up here on the screen so you can see what I rated everything, what my average rating is for the quarter. Yeah, and I look forward to reading some good stuff in the upcoming months. And I actually also already finished, it is April 9th today. I already finished my first book of this quarter, quarter 2, and it was fine. Probably one of my lowest rated for the year. No, it wasn't bad. It just was like one of those weird lit books that just kind of doesn't really have a plot, and it's just like, okay, that was fine. So we'll talk about that next quarter, and I hope everyone is having a lovely 2026 so far. I'm sure you're not, are any of us, but you know. See you soon.